I want to start out by saying congratulations to everybody on who's joining us today. Congratulations on your Cultural Star Award. It's very exciting. It's really exciting for our team to get started on the 2024 round of getting all of your projects underway and contracted with the city. So welcome. We're going to start out with some introductions, and we are going to record this. So if you ever have to come back and wonder what we talked about, this is going to be recorded. It will be on our website. If you have colleagues that couldn't be here today, the recording will be available for everybody. All right, can everybody hear me okay? Wonderful. All right, I'm going to kick this off. Hello, I am Jessica Larson Johnston. I've met many of you possibly during the interview process, which was way back in June. So it's good to see you again. I am the Cultural Star Program Coordinator, and I have been here since the very end of January of this year. So I am still somewhat new, but lots of enthusiasm and energy for the job. And it's an exciting day today for me. I am going to pass it off to my colleagues. Nancy and Grace are both here, and I will tee it off to Grace for a quick intro.
Thanks, Jessica. Hi, everyone. My name is Grace Bubel. I am a project management technician with the City of St. Paul, and I work with the Cultural Star program. So I see some faces that I recognize in this meeting, and I see some new ones. So welcome to everyone. We're so excited to have you join us today, and congratulations on your Cultural Star Award. I will be working with many of you on the contracting and disbursement processes. So great to have you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nancy, and I'm the management assistant for both STAR programs, but I will also be managing projects for Cultural Star as well. So a few of you will have me as your project manager. It's nice to meet all of you.
Okay, so I am going to share my screen as we start going through the presentation. Go backwards here. I'm going to concentrate on the presentation. If you have questions, please raise your hand or enter your question in the chat. Grace and Nancy are keeping track of that, and we'll pause when necessary if you have questions. We will have time at the end if you want to save your question, but if we're on a slide and you have specific questions about the slide or you need a little bit more detail or explanation, please just raise your hand and we will get to everybody. So again, welcome to the virtual grantee orientation, and we're excited to have you here. And I want to make sure I can, there we go. So, okay, so I'm going to start off by saying we have three, as everyone knows, there's three project types. And today we're going to really cover, the orientation is going to cover special projects and organizational development. So we have two capital projects that were funded this year. So if you are Twin Cities PBS or the Schubert Club, your project manager is going to reach out to you individually to go over the orientation, because it differs slightly than the majority of the projects that were funded, which are organizational development and special project. So if you are here and your capital, feel free to stay, but it will, this will all be targeted toward the other two projects. So if you have to pop off, know that Nancy is actually going to be the project manager for anyone that has a capital project. So Nancy will be reaching out to you shortly. I mean, if in the next few days or by early next week, we'll all have communicated with anyone that we are project managing. So I'm going to kind of skip this slide because it really just shows the projects, and I think we're all aware of that. So right off the bat, we're going to have a grant award list, and I'm going to show you what that looks like at the end of this presentation. But on that grant award list are going to be something really important, which is our contract dates. So which are 8/1/2024 through July 31st, 2025. Also on that grant award list, we're going to have grant numbers. That will include a CIF number, a Cultural Star number, and an account code, and those are mainly there so that we can keep things organized on our end. And all of your paperwork will be fluid with those numbers, and it is mostly for our sake on our end. There also is going to be all of the project information, the name of your project, the type of your project, whether it's special project or an organizational development project, whether you're in district or out of the cultural district, and your award amount will be on there, and also the project manager and contact info. So you'll be able to clearly see how to reach Grace, how to reach Nancy, how to reach myself. I will also be project managing about 24 of these, not to actually about a dozen of the projects, and Nancy a little less than that, and most of you will probably be working with Grace. So the next really important thing, and probably the most to most of you, is contracting. So we need to get you under contract, and the way Cultural Star works is that you get an 80% advance payment once we get you under contract. So that's really important. If this is important, if your project has already taken place, and since our window of eligibility did start August 1st, there's a good chance that many projects have already taken place. So if that is you, we're going to begin this process as soon as possible, but you won't receive an 80% advance. You will just sort of get under contract and close out, and all your funds will be dispersed all at once. It makes the most sense since your event already happened. And if your project hasn't taken place, the deadline to get under contract is May 6th of 2025. Now, I think it's helpful to get under contract as soon as possible, but that is the very latest anyone can get under contract with the city. My screen is a bit locked, so just hang in there. Okay, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on contracting and getting the eight. Yep, we have a question, so I'm going to let Grace, Stefan Chrysler or Stephen Chrysler.
Yes, can you hear me? I unmuted. So in our case, our project has taken place already, as you alluded, that's a possible likelihood. But because we did not know whether we get the grant or not, we operated on an extremely tight belt budget that was well below what we had proposed for the STAR application. So can we use the funds for anything else, or do we just submit the reduced expense list and that's what you will reimburse? I mean, I do hope you understand what kind of agony and pain you put us under by not rolling out these announcements in a more timely way.
Thank you for the question. Yes, and the timing is hard for us to address here. It was out of our hands. There's so many stakeholders involved, and we're hoping that we can find a way to speed this process up. We're hoping to start the next round a little bit earlier. We're going to do everything in our power to not have the delay that we had. We all agree it was frustrating that it went as long as it did before we could announce the recommendations. So I feel for you, and I understand that you wanted to tighten your belt. In this case, if you're going to get under contract and you're going to close out at all at the same time, the reimbursement will be for the things that you're going to have in your statement of work and your budget. And if there are other things that could have been eligible within that project, you can add that to your budget. We're going to show you the statement of work later. And you can talk to your program manager and your project manager, and kind of work with them to figure out, could this be eligible? Could I add this? And so in this case, we're going to try to be as flexible as possible. We want you to try to use as much as your grant as possible. If anyone can't use the whole grant, just some of the grant gets returned to the program. But that's going to be more of a question of once you get under contract and work with your project manager, looking at your budget and what you can attach as reimbursements for the STAR money, and kind of work with them. I think that's going to be our best bet. It's hard to say yes or no right now without knowing all of the detail of what your event was or project was.
Fair enough. So there's kind of a gray zone that is up for review and negotiation, if I hear you right.
Yeah, if there were, yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be more work with your project manager. It can't be something far-fetched that had nothing to do with your event. And so it does have to be toward your event, but they can work with you on thinking of maybe there were other things that happened that could be like considered eligible. And since you're getting under contract and closing out at the same time, you're going to be filling out your statement of work with your project manager, and they can help kind of guide you through that. It's really hard to answer that question with a solid answer for you without knowing all the circumstances.
Sure, I understand that, yeah.
Great, thank you. Any other questions right now? Okay.
But you're clearly answering though, saying, let's just hypothetically assume we got $10,000 and we spent only $5,000. We cannot get back to you and say, hey, we have an idea for another very similar event to be held in May. Can we do that?
Not if it wasn't part of your application. So everyone was funded by the board and the mayor's office based on the application that you submitted. So it can't, all of a sudden there can't be another event or another thing to make eligible. It has to coincide with your application.
Mm-hmm. Just as long as you understand that that clearly favors the people who have not held their event yet versus the people who have already held their event.
Yeah, that is just sort of the gray area we're in with funding and grants, where there is that lag time in terms of waiting to see if you've gotten funded. So I know it's a frustration for people who have already had their event, and it's just sort of the parameters that we have to work under with this program.
So I would suggest then for the next one, start the date later, because I'm sure there's others too that were kind of caught in this like us, where there was like 3 months or so that we thought we would have the funding and then didn't. And so we Stefan said we scaled back. But we had a great event that a lot of people came to.
What I would say is we're taking all of this feedback, and we had a lot of organizations reach out during the waiting process with frustration. So today, and I understand that today I want to get through just the orientation on how we can get through this, but I welcome that feedback. You can work with your project manager on compiling some feedback that you have for us at the end. And we're going to talk about this later, but you're going to end up doing a report at the end through Zoom Grants. And there's 5 questions, and it kind of talks about your project and things that went well and things that didn't. And then there's feedback for the city. So there's absolutely an opportunity for everyone to give us feedback through Zoom Grants as well.
All right, thank you. Sorry about taking up your time.
No, don't be at all. Don't be. All right. So to get under contract and to get your 80% advance payment, the first thing you're going to want to fill out is your statement of work. And all of this is going to be available on our website, but you don't have to go to the website unless you want to get a preview. I think probably by tomorrow, everything will be up on the website, but your project manager is going to send you all of the things that you need to complete. So they're going to send you the statement of work, and you're going to complete it, email it to your project manager. The funding, as we just mentioned on your specific question, is specific to the project type and the geographic location, whether you were in or out of cultural district. If you are in, you can't all of a sudden have in-district funding and then all of a sudden have all of your events out of the cultural district, because that isn't how the award was awarded. And your project scope has to mirror what you had in your Cultural Star application. Your project and eligible expenses must be within the effective contract period, which again is August 1st, 2024 through July 31st, 2025. Only expenses from budgeted categories indicated in your statement of work will be eligible for reimbursement. New budget categories and budget lines can't be added later. Documentation will be required for disbursement. This will be a little bit more clear when I show you your statement of work, because there's a budget category. And we're going to talk a lot about this later because it's helpful to have a lot of budget areas. And I'll point this out later so that you have some flexibility of what you can get reimbursed for. If you have one budget line just for venue, and then you ended up having artists that you had to pay or marketing or postage, and you didn't budget any dollars for those categories, you can't then move money into a category that you didn't use at the beginning of your contracting period. So I'm going to go into that further shortly. We have a 1-to-1 match only for grantees awarded more than 50K, and no one was. So that's just there. And those were in past years, we did have a 1-to-1 match. The other couple things you need to have to get under contract is proof of insurance, which will be, you'll email to your project manager and they're going to email you a template. And they work. And if vehicles were used in your event, there's some documentation in insurance of whether you had car insurance. And so that's sort of the proof of insurance. And then there's a conflict of interest statement that you need to fill out quickly. And then your W-9 form if needed. So if you have already received Cultural Star and you have a W-9 form on file with the city, we probably have that. But if you're new to the city funding or you have a new address or organizational name, then you will fill out a new W-9 form. Special circumstances. So there are some circumstances where people had a fiscal sponsor. And in that case, your contract will be between the fiscal sponsor and the city. You'll provide a copy of your fiscal sponsor agreement to your project manager. The documentation is usually completed and submitted by the grantee, and the fiscal sponsor fee can be included in the budget as an expense charge to STAR. And again, any questions around fiscal sponsor, you'll work with your project manager and they can help you through that process. We also just need a Minnesota Secretary of State business status. It must be active and in good standing, in which I think everyone was when they applied for Cultural Stars. So we just want to make sure that nothing's changed with that in the months between. Step 2 for contracting an 80% advance payment will be reviewing and signing a contract and a payment form. The contract will be prepped by your project manager, so either me or Grace or Nancy. It will be, and included there would be the statement of work, and that will be approved. And the certificate of insurance will be submitted and approved. And then your project manager is going to send you a payment request form, and you'll sign it and we'll fill it out and you'll have to sign it, and it's prepped by us. And then we will go through an e-signature process. And then the City of St. Paul signs and processes your contract and the payment request. And I think it's about, once everything gets through and is approved, I think it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nancy or Grace, about 10 days?
10 business days.
10 business days. And then you'll get your 80% advance. All right, next step is implementing your project. So we always like to tell people, especially at the beginning now, is be prepared for your final requirements. Keep all of your documentation of expenses that you want to charge to the STAR program. That means invoices, receipts, copies of payment method, artist, venue contracts. Anything that you are going to use STAR money for, you need really full documentation for it. We also ask that you give proper credit to STAR. We're excited about your projects, and we want to be a part of your logos, or we have a logo and we want, if you have acknowledgement statements or Facebook events or programs or promotional materials, you'll have access to our logo and we like to be included. And then the final step after your event has taken place is you close out. And to close out, then you get your 20% remaining payment after you've closed out. So the main things that you'll do is you'll go into Zoom Grants and you're going to submit some documentation on a final report. And your project manager is going to send you a final payment request. And the key things here are just that your project must have taken place. You'll need to fill out and sign the final payment request form. The grantee must provide documentation of the following. So all expenses that you're charging to the Cultural Star grant, you need to demonstrate what the expense was for, that it was related to the project and within one of the approved budget categories from your statement of work, such as receipts, invoices, contracts. You also need to document how it was paid. Did you use a check? And so we need a copy of that check that was used, or we need a bank or credit card statement. And then we need date expenses were incurred and paid. So the expenses need to have incurred between August 1st, 2024 and July 31st, 2025. And then continuing on, we need to just show that you gave some credit to Cultural Star with maybe a website printout. You can send us your program. You can send us promotional materials. And then you'll send us the completion of your final report in Zoom Grants. And then the STAR grant shall be fully dispersed within 90 days from the end of the effective dates of this grant agreement. So that doesn't mean that's when it's going to happen. If you close out much earlier, you'll get your payout the remaining 20% earlier. The latest that we're going to close anyone out is 90 days after July 31st, 2025, which would be October 29th of next year. Okay, it looks like we have a question from Adam.
Yes, hello. I just had a quick question about the dates of the disbursement and the dates, or rather, I'm sorry, the dates of an incurred expense and a payment of those incurred expenses. That much makes sense. What about does the invoice date play into that as well? For example, let's say our festival, the Irish Fair of Minnesota, takes place in mid-August. We get invoiced for things prior to the August 1st start date of the contract, but we don't incur the expense until after the start date of the contract, and we obviously don't pay them until later as well. But the fact that an invoice may come in prior, is that a problem? Or does that make those expenses ineligible in a way, in any way?
Okay, totally understand this question, and it happens. We do ask that invoice dates be within the eligibility period. So in those cases, what we would do first is ask that, do you have other expenses that were eligible within the period of time that could maybe take that place of that invoice? I'm going to let Grace. Is that what you would say? Okay. There are some circumstances that you can talk to your project manager on a case-by-case basis. We try to be as flexible as possible, but we're also trying to work within the confines of the guidelines that we have to work under. So we really emphasize that everything has to be between the dates of the eligible period for this Cultural Star grant.
Okay,
and again,
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Again, you can ask kind of more detailed questions about your specific project, maybe to your project manager, and see if there's any wiggle room. But we are really tightening our belts over here. It used to be that it wasn't a big deal to close out at a certain time, and then we would just have people closing out a year or two later, and it just didn't work. So we are really trying to tighten things up, and I'm just trying to, like, the dates to close out, I'm just going to emphasize, are really important, and there'll be deadlines, and we'll make sure people know when to close out. Otherwise, there's a chance of not getting the 20% at the end, because we are just trying to tighten the ship over here in terms of just also minding the ship on this end and making sure people close out. But it's a good question. I know that happens, and I would say for the most part, we really want you to be within the eligibility dates. If things fall out, it has to go to leadership, and there's a strong possibility they would deny it. So we just try to tell everyone, if you keep it within the dates, that's the safest bet.
Thank you.
Looks like we have another question.
Hi, not sure if you can hear me. I'm wondering, I think I can guess the answer to this question. Given the fact that there's been such a delay on the announcement of funds, I would normally ask whether there was any possibility to do an extension on the period in which the funding can be used, but it kind of sounds like you're suggesting that there is no wiggle room for time extension in this case. Is that correct? Or is there any ability to request extension?
In certain circumstances, extensions have been made. So it really depends on each case, and it also has to be approved by leadership. So it isn't just our STAR team that says, yeah, that's fine. It has to kind of go through a channel on this end.
Okay.
And so there's no guarantee that you'd get an extension.
Sure. So it's not impossible, but it sounds unlikely, potentially.
Yeah, I can't promise that that could happen. And I've seen extensions get approved and I've seen extensions not get approved.
Yeah.
So we try to have everyone try to stay within the dates.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions at this moment? Okay, I'm going to move on a little bit. Okay, so on our website at stpaul.gov/cultural star, you're going to see all the information on our website page. And if you scroll down towards the bottom of our website page, you're going to see information for grant recipients. And then you can see that little arrow there, and it says recipient resources. Our comms director right now is working on updating all of the information for 2024. And my guess is by the end of today or tomorrow, it'll be there if you guys want to go look at some of those resources. You can see statement of work. You can see what the grant list. You can see a checklist that we provide that shows everything that you need from the beginning of the process to the end. And again, you will receive all of this from your project manager, so you don't have to worry that you have to find any information. We're going to walk through this process with you the whole way. But it's there in case sometimes people like to get an early glance and start working on things on their own ahead of time, and then you are free to do that. Okay, so this is just kind of giving a little bit of step-by-step for when you're ready to close out and you're waiting to get your 20% remaining payment. You are going to log into your Zoom Grants account because you need to do this report. So you're going to find your application and you're going to access the final report tab. And then it's just going to really it's pretty user-friendly. And so it's going to lead you to what you need to do. You're going to complete your report and your responses will automatically save as you move to the next question. You're going to upload your closeout report and you're going to fill out your expense sheet that we're going to provide for you and match if applicable. It's not applicable for any of you, so you don't have to worry about that. And then you're going to submit it. And then if you need more information on how to submit the final report, we offer the website for Zoom Grants, and they walk you through it as well if you wanted to click on their link. And then we have some tips for closing out, and I might bat it over to Grace. She does so many of these projects for you guys that she has like a long list of like tips that are very helpful. And so we decided to add it to our orientation this year so that when you guys are thinking about your budgets and things that you want to be eligible or thinking, that she has some tips. And then I'm going to toss it over to Grace.
Thanks, Jessica. Okay, so I'm going to share a few tips to keep in mind that might be helpful when it comes time to closing out your grant. So the first is, where possible, to charge larger expenses to the grant Now, this isn't required, but it can be helpful to save time and save yourself from having to keep track of a bunch of documents and time for your project manager to review them. So for example, say you have a $5,000 grant and you know that $4,000 could go to a facility rental expense that falls within the contract period. It could be a good idea to charge that expense to the grant, because then that's one invoice that you're submitting to us. That's one documentation of proof of payment for that you're submitting to us, and then you have $1,000 to find elsewhere. So that can be helpful, rather than submitting receipts for $30 expenses that add up to a $5,000 grant. If that is what works best for your project and for your organization, then that's just fine. It just can be helpful to think ahead and try to strategically plan what your larger expenses could be used for. Okay, so next, from a project manager's perspective, this is what we will look for when we're reviewing your submitted closeout documents. So first, we look at, do all the expenses fall into the budget categories that were allocated in the contract? So Jessica talked about this a little bit earlier in the presentation, but again, reiterating here, when you get under contract with us, you'll fill out that statement of work form, which I think Jessica is going to show us later on. But on that statement of work form, you'll see different budget categories that can be used for Cultural Star grant. So when you choose those categories, it's helpful to keep in mind that you can't add new categories later. So if you think you might charge expenses to different various categories, then list that on the statement of work, because there is flexibility in how much you actually spend out of those categories when it comes time to closing out. So for example, if you list in administrative personnel, $4,000, and in artistic personnel, $1,000, those amounts can change. So you could end up spending all $5,000 in artistic or all $5,000 in administrative. What you can't do is then add funds at closeout that you'd like to have spent towards supplies, for example. So those amounts can differ. So there is some flexibility. It's just the categories, once they're locked in, those can't change. Another thing we look at is whether each expense lists a date within the contract period. So we touched on this earlier, but when we're reviewing the documents, we look at the invoice date, we look at the date of like an artist contract, things like that. So we want to make sure that the expenses are falling within that contract period, which was referred to earlier, but you'll also find it on your contract. On the first page, it'll be under effective dates. All right, and then another few things that we look at are, does each expense have a corresponding document that shows proof of payment? So you may submit an invoice. We also need to see that you paid off that invoice. So it could be, a check, it could be a bank statement. A receipt is a really helpful piece of documentation, because those typically show both what the expense was and that it was paid. So a receipt is kind of like a twofold document. So that can be helpful to keep in mind. The proof of payment doesn't need to be within the effective dates. So let's say you have an event that's closer to the end of our contract period. You might end up paying your artists outside of that contract period, and that's just fine. The proof of payment does not need to be within those dates. Then we also want to see that the proof of payment is clear to us. So say you send over bank statements and there's a long list of a lot of different things. Well, as the project manager, we probably won't know which payments are intended for which expenses. So it can be helpful to highlight those for us. I've also seen people redact the grant amount. So some folks do end up spending a little less than their grant amount, but most people do spend the whole grant. And so we just want to look and make sure that that's the case. So these are just some helpful tips that can be nice to keep in mind as you're thinking ahead towards closing out. And again, as Jessica said, your project manager will work with you on all of this. If you have questions, if things are unclear, feel free to contact us. We're here to support you and make this as easy and simple as it can be.
Thank you, Grace. Okay, well, our last slide just on this initial presentation just gives our contact information, and we're excited to share our brand new logo for St. Paul, the St. Paul STAR program. We've had an outdated version for a long time, so we're really excited about that. But again, you'll have a lot of information that includes this information, but also the website. Feel free to always check that. We try to keep it updated. So anything new about Cultural STAR, you can go to the stpaul.gov /Cultural STAR. And there ends. I have to like quickly stop sharing for a second so I can see you guys. It's so awkward to sometimes give a presentation and not be able to see everybody. So it's good to see you. I'm now, it looks like we have someone in chat. There's something in chat. So let me see. Just the last one? Okay, Colleen asks, hello, this year our grant was partially funded. This will impact the scope of the activities that were listed in our project activities. Do you have any suggestions or guidance on how to manage this to honor what was presented and approved in the grant? Yes, and I think most people got partial funding, not 100%, but so this is probably a question a lot of people have. And it's really up to you as the organization on how you want to have that project scope kind of change a little bit based on the fact that you're not getting as much money as you had originally asked for. You can work with your project manager, but it's probably a case-by-case situation, and it's really up to you guys on how you want to adjust things that you had budgeted. Is the logo file accessible on the website? Yes, it will be, either later today or tomorrow. They will be, yes. Oh, thank you, Grace. Thank you. All right, I am going to share my screen again, and now I'm going to go through a couple of the forms. I think it's helpful sometimes we're talking about them, and it's hard until you see them to understand really what they look like. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to share my screen again, and I need to figure out how to get out of my presentation file. Let's see. I'm going to close that out, and I'm going to go here. Okay. So the first thing we're looking at here is that grant list that I talked about right at the beginning of our presentation. So again, it is just a list with the SIF number, star, account, in, out of district, special, what kind of project type in your organization. And at the very far right corner is going to be who your project manager is, and your funding level is there. And at the top of the page, all of our contact information is here. We really are a close-knit team over here, so we collaborate all the time. So if for some reason your project manager is on vacation or out sick and you have a question, we all share the load together. So we're always happy to answer questions on a project that we might not be the manager for. And then I'm going to show you a quick example of the template for the insurance. We'll send this to you so you can kind of see up here. You're going to see the levels of insurance that the city requires. If there's a workman's comp, like I mentioned, section. There's an automobile liability section. A lot of people, it doesn't matter because they're not involving vehicles, but just in case. And again, any specific questions, your project manager is going to be able to help you with. If you don't have these levels, your project manager is going to help you figure out a way with your insurance to meet our requirements. So there can sometimes be an umbrella policy that works. So again, work with your project manager. We will become friends. So, all right, let's see here. I want to show you the statement of work, and it's kind of hidden. Can't really get to it. There we go. All right, the all-important attachment A. I'm going to scroll slowly, but really the first part of your statement of work is all really just putting quick information in about your project title, your organization, address, phone number. And then you're going to also list where are your star funds? What were you awarded? If you were awarded 14,000, you put that there. There is additional funds, and sometimes that column is still there because we used to have a match. Sometimes it's also if you're having a really huge project and you have other funding, sometimes you want to put that there. So it's more for you. Like you want to see sort of all of your funds put together. The only ones we're worried about are the cultural star funds because that's what we've awarded. So you don't have to put anything in there on additional funds. It's sort of up to you. You're going to put your project summary in this square here, and it's going to probably mirror what you have in your application. So you'll probably just do a copy and paste there. Then we ask you to fill out a projected timeline, and you also did this in your application. So a lot of this is just really transferring information that you had on your application into the statement of work. Now, the budget is what we talked about a lot, so I'm going to stay here for a few minutes and tell you that again, you don't have to have anything in this additional funds column. It's for you if you want to have it there. We're not going to look at it. We're really just wanting to look at this first STAR grant column. And again, you can see the areas in which you can put budget in. And again, we've mentioned it many times, but it is helpful to use as many areas as you want, just in case at the end you have an area that you'd like to put some of your eligible costs in to get reimbursed. Again, if you only have the facility and artistic, then when you close out, you can only be reimbursed for artistic and facility. Those amounts can shift. They don't have to be exactly the amount that you put in at the beginning, but it just has to have some sort of dollar amount in that column. So we really are trying to emphasize that because some organizations find at the end that they have to return STAR funds because they couldn't now, assess putting some into supplies or putting some into transportation or marketing materials. So we encourage people to put some dollar amount in several areas so that you have some flexibility at the end when you're closing out. And then a lot of this other stuff just also, we always include in lots of places the eligible contract date, and that about sums up the statement of work. You will also have access to a cultural star closeout and contracting checklist. It's really wordy, and don't be overwhelmed by it. It's just for you to have sort of in your file so that you know all the little steps to take and you can kind of check them off as you're going. So we really just step by step go through that. You have to have your statement of work and your liability insurance. I might have to move and plug in. I will do that. And then again, project implementation. It's just really a step-by-step template so that you can kind of follow along yourself. I'm going to move slightly just so I don't disappear from the presentation. Thank you. There we go. Okay, those were the main things I wanted to show. There was actually one more thing. Let me see if I have it here. Yes, awesome. This is the first year we're going to supply this to you because we do ask that you present something like this to us. And then it just occurred to us, this is what we use on our end, and why don't we just supply it to organizations? So there are 2 tabs on the bottom. This is a blank form, the first tab, that if you want to do yours a different way, have at it. We're just trying to be helpful. The second tab gives just a little example of the way Grace has filled this out as an example. So at the top, she puts in like the STAR grant amount. She's got all the pertinent information about who the organization is. And then the budget categories that this organization used was artistic personnel and supplies. And so it just keeps everything organized. And so it's just an easy way to keep track of your expenses. And then you can put your document dates in or your document type. And if you don't want to do this, you don't have to. You can supply everything and receipts and stuff, and then we'll kind of go through everything and do this for you. but so many, we had several organizations ask if we had anything we could send that could help organize it. And so we just decided we're going to make this accessible. So your project manager will send this to you too. And again, this is optional. We're going to do this anyway, but if it helps you sort of stay organized, that's why we're going to offer it. There are some things on compliance, and none of our compliance rules for the city will affect any of your projects. It has to like be above a certain dollar amount for compliance to kind of come into play for the city of St. Paul. And this year's round of Cultural Star, none of this will matter. So they're always going to say NA. And that was most of what I wanted to show you for documents. And so I'm going to open it up now for other questions that might have popped up that you guys might have.
You really did the job.
Does everyone feel like they're ready to, okay, Shelley, I'm going to come. All right, Shelley, go for it. Shelley, you're muted. Wait, all right. Shelley, can you unmute yourself?
Maybe you can type it into the chat.
Shelley, we can't hear you. Could you type your question into the chat? Thank you. I'm not sure why we can't hear you, but. In the meantime, while we wait for Shelley's question in the chat, does anyone else have a question?
Hi, I do. It's Stephen Demena from Park Square Theater. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. So when we do that, the document you just showed us, right, that shows the vendors we're hiring and the supplies, if we're only using the grant for a portion, like let's say we're hiring several people, but the grant is paying for these 3 vendors or this set of supplies, but we're paying for the rest in other ways, do we only document what we're using grant funds for?
Yes.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to take a question. Shelley, we're still having trouble. In the meantime, Molly has a question. Hello, I'm representing Springboard for the Arts. Thank you so much for this present. Oh, thank you.
Angie has a question.
Okay, Angie.
I also want to make sure of what I heard with Grace's comments and tips here. We are only going to be recording in the statement of work what we're asking the grant to perform. And if it slightly exceeds the amount awarded, we still document the total amount and the fact that the award from the grant is at. So for instance, to document and reach the amount of money that has been awarded, we actually are going to need to go slightly above it. But the grant is only going to be at the amount that was offered, for instance, at $6,500. And I think, Grace, you said that that's all right, as long as we recognize that you've done the best you can and we're going to be awarding you your maximum amount of money. Did I get that right?
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
So it's just fine if the expenses that you submit exceed the grant amount. Just know that whatever your grant award is what you'll be reimbursed for. And it might be helpful even on the documentation if you'd like to note only X amount is meant to be allocated to the grant of this expense, if that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Okay, a quick question from Sri from India Association of Minnesota. Yes, so you're going to wait. You'll hear from your project manager in the next few days to early next week, and you'll start the process of getting under contract and closing out at the same time. So there won't be a 80% advance going because it doesn't make sense. It makes most sense just to do all the paperwork at once And then you'll be dispersed to the full amount once all the documentation is in. Oh, Shelley, yes. All right, Shelley, yay. If the scope is changing due to the reductions of funds, do we put this in our scope of work now? The scope is changing due to the reductions. Yes. Anybody else? I think the most important thing to know is that like we're really excited and pumped for all of these projects that are happening, and it's exciting for us to work with new organizations and old friends, and we're going to try to make this as easy as possible. And we want you to have a really successful event, and we know that many have already happened, and we can't wait to hear about those and try to strengthen the program every year. So there's always going to be some things that don't go exactly the way that we wanted during the process, and we learn from that. And some of that is timing. So we appreciate everyone's patience. So we should expect to see our contract materials come through. Yes, absolutely. If you have Grace, you'll hear from Grace. And I think I have about 13 projects I'm project managing, and I will reach out by early next week if you're under my umbrella, and Nancy has a couple handfuls as well. So yes, you don't have to do anything. We are going to reach out to you and make the connection. Does everyone feel confident in what they need to do? And once we kind of contact you?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Since this is like a room full of artists, does anyone have anything they want to share, or any event coming up? Or we don't often get so many awesome cultural organizations in one room. So I'd like to open and have space for that if anyone wants to share anything. Olivia.
Oh,
Our event is over already, as I mentioned. But we have tomorrow night, we have another gallery opening of a Nigerian artist, Tunde Odunlade, who is truly from Nigeria, lives and works in Nigeria, but he has a connection at the University of Minnesota here. And it's a not to be missed show of outstanding African art. If anybody is looking for something fun to do on a Friday night, come up on Payne Avenue. Come and join the show. It's going to be a really great thing.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing. We have.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Stephen. I'm going to try to just put your hand up in your chat if you want to talk, and then we'll kind of go person by person. But go ahead, Stephen.
Just wanted to say we're thrilled to get the Cultural Star grant again this year as Park Square reemerges from 18 months of suspended programming. So we have a holiday hot chocolate coming up again with Thomasina Petrus and Dan Chenard, December 14th, 15th, and 16th. And then we open the project that we're using this grant for is a new family series for families and children, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, a wonderful play based on Barbara Robinson's book, opens December 6th.
Wonderful. Olivia.
Hi, I'm here with Circus Juventus, and we're putting on our holiday show coming up on December 7th, I believe. It's super great. If anyone's seen our summer shows before, it's the same level of caliber, just amazing performances from young circus artists, and it's only 70 minutes. So it's also a really easy show to stop by on a winter night and get warmed up with some amazing circus arts.
Awesome. Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. I am Stephanie with Full Circle Theater Company, and we have our show running right now, The Adventures of a Traveling Meskwaki, but written by and with the lead performer is Oogie Push, who is from the Meskwaki Nation in Iowa, and it is her story of traveling across North America and really centers her relationship to water and healing the water and our connectedness. And I think really we have found, so we ran one weekend and then we're going right now and we have one more week after this. And I think in this, especially in this tumultuous political, emotional moment, a lot of people have found it to be a calm, a balm, a beacon, really just to reconnect with each other, with nature, with the cosmos and our ancestors and sort of all that is in the here and now. So we would love to see you there. We are at Park Square Theater. Hi, Stephen. We're on the lower level on the Andy Boss stage. We have 9 more shows left starting tonight. We would love to see you there. All tickets are paid as you are able. So please come join us.
Thanks for sharing. Let's go to Angie.
Skylark Opera Theater will be opening their holiday opera. It is The Christmas Spider, which is based on a truly heartwarming and charming holiday tradition coming out of Ukrainian background traditions of the Christmas Spider. And that is opening December 19th through 22nd, and it will be in St. Paul at the Lowry Lab Theater.
Wonderful. Elena. Elena, you are muted.
Oh, there we go. Hello.
There you
I know
go.
how to unmute myself. Opera Reading Project is doing a concert performance of Konrad Susa's 1973 opera Transformations, which, fun fact, premiered here in Minnesota. It's a wonderful adaptation of text by Anne Sexton. It's sort of a fairy tale deconstruction, reconstruction thing that I think is pretty potent under the current cultural circumstances of exploring human connection and deep emotions. So that's on Sunday, it's not October anymore, November 24th at the Minnesota Opera Center in Minneapolis.
Wonderful. What a bunch of wonderful events coming up. Amy.
Hi, Amy from Landmark Center. We have our live concert tonight.
Amy, can you speak up a little bit? I think we're all having a little bit of trouble hearing.
Better?
Not really. We're just going to all kind of lean in.
I'm not sure why it's going. I'm not sure why it's not coming through. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I'm leaning in.
I'm trying to talk really loud. It's probably the microphone on my laptop.
That's better. You're good.
Okay. So tomorrow night is our next Landmark Live concert. It is the Foxgloves, which is a local all-female group and a folk group, and they're just amazing. So I'm not doing anything tomorrow night. Come down and see them in the very intimate Weyerhaeuser Auditorium in Landmark. And then on Sunday we have the Minnesota Mandolin Concert, which is also going to be a very nice concert. And then of course we go full on into the holidays with Landmark Center Holiday Bazaar, which starts December 6th. So lots of things going on.
Thanks for sharing. Tib.
Just going to plug the Minnesota Mandolin Orchestra at Landmark Center on Sunday, which is at the same time as the AAW Gallery of Art wood turning demonstrations, which are super family friendly and a great chance to see how wood turning works. And with the background music of the Minnesota mandolins, could it be better?
Great combination. All right. Anybody else have anything to share? Have I missed anyone? All right, you guys, thank you for joining our grantee orientation. Again, we're going to reach out to you. We're excited to get things moving, and that's all we have for today. So thanks for joining.
Thank you. I got my sound.
Ah, yay.